Welcome to Caroline with E. This session is going to record progress of a portrait called Sunshine. I apologize for the quality of the video and the setup. I believe it was the first video that I recorded and figured out a lot of tones while I was doing that. I started with an ink wash containing a neutral color diluted with turpentine. And I like that because you can erase your mistakes easily. All you have to do is to use a rag with a little bit of turpentine or a brush and you'll be able to erase quite well. It's better than trying to erase graffiti in a canvas. This is a self-portrait that I decided to make a little twist of fun by making a swimsuit cloudy while I call the painting sunshine. If you find color mixing overwhelming, you can start just with black and white and then move on to color, or you can just leave it like that, why not? Black and white's beautiful. When I paint, I generally like to start with color already because I am very impatient, and if I see that I did a lot of things and it is still black and white, I feel like I didn't have any progress at all, but it's not necessarily true. I like to start first blocking really dark spots and really light colors. And then I carefully do the mix where they merge. For the beginning I just apply the ink and I don't mind about doing the mix. If you are doing the really dark spots, go darker than you think that you should go, because if you don't do that and then you have to go darker after you put a color that is a little bit diluted with white, you are going to regret later because you're probably going to end up with an ugly muddy color. And I will regret not using a tape to make the lines straight in perspective right, especially when using a dark color that will be a little bit of a pain in the to fix. Although oil painting really got my heart, the smell is really annoying, not to mention that it's dangerous to the health. The ink itself smells strong, but the worst are the solvents that you have to use with it. I usually use liquid. Most people use liquid, they're from other brands as well. That is used to extend the pigment and make it dry faster. That has a really strong smell. And I don't know, I would not try to use linseed oil instead. The texture is completely different. And I am using turpentine, that's a derivative from tree. It smells really strong yet, although it's a little better than something that I was using before. But then I didn't know yet that there was available spirits that are called odorless mineral spirits. While I have turpentine, I'm going to keep using it. When it's over, I'm going to buy one of those. And I encourage to start already with that because the smell is really terrible. And an option that I know that there is in the market is from Rublev and Ganson. The Ganson is the most famous one. And so you can know how strong it is. I used to paint inside of my room in the other house, and I would paint with the windows open, but then I had to close to be able to go to sleep, and the painting was drying the room. Next day I would wake up with a killer migraine. Okay, now it's about time to fix those weird lines. It's the second layer to fix because I didn't use a tape before. As long as the paint is dry, using the Scotch tape will not be an issue at all. I like to go as light as possible in the quantity of ink on the first layers, and the reason is that I'm not so confident in a way to think that I'm going to finish in 2 layers. And the thicker you go, the longer it takes to dry. Using a medium solvent and going lighter, most times it will dry overnight. Except it's on white because it takes about double of the time to dry compared with others. And that brilliant idea to block dark something as delicate as a hair in the forehead was not brilliant at all. So let's count how many layers it's going to take to cover that thing. I know that what I'm doing right now looks visually weird, but as I said before, I like to go darker on shadows and then I can start going lighter little by little. When the ink is still wet, I can always add a lighter color until I get to the point that I want and make the transition. Also, until I have a bit advance in the main color, I don't worry with many color variations. Only at this time that I am adding the reddish tones, which will probably disappear between layers in the next minutes, but it's normal. I am still in the learning process, so we always redo and redo and redo, and that's what's nice about that kind of material. To make the color or the drawing itself pop, it's necessary to exaggerate a little at the shadows and highlights, and maybe a little bit in the colors too. I am still a little bit coward, but this time I was able to push myself a little more. To make adjustments at the reference picture helps a lot. I did several versions of this one. I increased contrast, I increased saturation, I used it in Photoshop filters called posterize, solarize, and the classic black and white, and those are my favorites to play around. At least by this point, I am relieved that I can see that the recording looks a little better and the glare isn't killing it. So sad. The first brush stroke had a nice shadow color, and then I mixed too many colors and I killed that and became muddy. But you know, patience has a limit, and I'm just going to move on, and in a few years or a few months I can just come back and fix it. That's thumbs up for the product. Well, sometimes we get it right. I really like the details that I was able to make in that hand. Well, to pay off for what I did before. Going back to the smell subject, you don't want dust or hair caught in the wet wing. So don't put a fan turning to you or turning anywhere that's going to lift that around the room where you are. You can put it that facing out of the window, or you can put that facing out of the door of the place, but be careful with the people in the house. You don't want to throw that in their faces, right? And now that I made my part as a responsible person, I will say what I really do, but that's at my own risk. I leave the window open as much as I can, but now is the season of the mosquitoes, and if I don't close in the afternoon, it feels like I am sleeping in the jungle. So what I do is I open the door of the office and I light a scented candle, but I do that far away from the products because of course I don't want to put myself on fire in the house. Remember that everything that we handle here it's inflammable. At this point I made a breakthrough. I learned that using turpentine you can do real thin details, but I tried first with a small angle brush, and that removed part of the ink that was in the previous layer, so I didn't try anymore. But without realizing, I had a little bit of turpentine at my detail brush, and that allowed me to do those thin hairs. So now I know how to do it. I got so happy with those thin lines that I kinda did a little too much, but that's okay. At some point I was worried that I was not going to do a good job during the time that I was painting it. I had issues with my computer and I lost several years of personal pictures. That impacted so much my motivation and patience, but I'm glad that I was able to keep continuing and I see a good result. I like it. Thank you for the patience of seeing the video. This is the final result.